this one we have here. So it's the Zotac Gaming GeForce GTX 1650 Super. This is the 4 gig model. Everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be looking at this. Originally when I built this, it was just with a Ryzen 3 3200G with the integrated graphics. Now this is the basic model system that we do to introduce gaming. You can buy a cheaper computer off us that can be used just for mainly office work, sort of like browsing the internet, making documents and things like that. But this one here, this is our very low end basic starter gaming computer with the integrated graphics on the Ryzen 3 3200G. That is with the integrated Vega 8 graphics. This is a 4-core, 4-thread CPU which has a base clock of 3.6 gigahertz, and it will boost up to 4 gigahertz. We pair these with an A320M board, and I normally use these ASRock A320M boards, the HDV version, because they have the extra fan controller on the board. So you get your CPU controller, fan header, and you get 2 chassis fan headers as well. The reason I choose these ASRock boards, mainly because they're cheap, but is because they've got the limited or non-existent overclockability. So I can trust these boards to not allow my customers to then overclock their machine and potentially cause issues if they don't know what they're doing. So I know that sounds a bit harsh, but on the back also you've got, with the integrated graphics, there is an HDMI, a DVI and a VGA. One of the best things about this board is that it has a Gen 3 PCIe M.2 slot. So this board can handle an M.2 drive. So that's the main reasons why I choose this board in particular when doing the budget systems. So what we did was we ran some benchmarks on some games with the 3200G. It's not bad for your base level gaming. I mean, like esports titles like CSGO, like Dota 2, all of those things are going to run fantastically well even on this. I tried some more intensive titles, and for all they are playable, they're not great, and that was at 1080p on low settings. So potentially you've got some headroom, because I was testing on 1080p. You could drop it down to 900p or 720p to enable a boost in frame rate. But I tested in 1080p, and in titles like Rise of the Tomb Raider there was around about 30 FPS average. I'll put some slides up on the screen for you to have a quick look at of all the different games that we tested. We tested Rise of the Tomb Raider, Rainbow Six Siege, Halo Reach, Counter-Strike Global Offensive, Doom as well. And that was all running with the 3200G, 8 gigs of memory. That was paired with 8 gigs of RAM, 3000 megahertz, and that is one stick, so that customers can in the future upgrade to 16 gigs of RAM with this 2 DIMM slot board. Quite easily upgrade to 16 gigs without having to invest in a whole new set of RAM. They can just add in one more 8 gig stick, 3000 megahertz Corsair Vengeance LPX. We've also got a 240 gig SSD in here and a 500 watt 80 plus bronze power supply. So there's plenty of headroom for adding in graphics cards later on, adding in extra drives, or even swapping out this processor for a stronger processor. So we did just that. we took our base model, and as you can see, we've added in a graphics card. Now this graphics card here is a 1650 Super from Nvidia. It's the Zotac branded graphics card. This one we have here. So it's the Zotac Gaming GeForce GTX 1650 Super. This is the 4 gig model. It is VR ready. It's running DirectX 12 and GDDR6. To be honest, I was very surprised with this card. So a card that I've just gotten rid of was the 1066 gig from Zotac. That was the 1066 gig mini. And that card has served me very well for coming up to 4 years, but I've recently just sold it because I've upgraded my graphics card and I now have a 5700 XT. But I'm possibly thinking of switching back to Nvidia. This is a dual fan design. It's quite a small card. It does require some external power in the way of a 6-pin connector, but it is pretty low wattage. The minimum power supply for this card is 350 watts or greater, and outputs we have DisplayPort, HDMI and DVI. So just to give you some idea of, we put this card in, we uninstalled, we used DDU, display driver uninstaller, to uninstall the display drivers for the Radeon software, and we installed the Nvidia GeForce Experience with the game ready drivers. And to give you an idea of how this card runs in this system with the 3200G, which is at standard base clocks, and the 8 gigs of system memory, I'll put another shot up on the screen of the graph that I made for this. But in general, it saw a massive boost in FPS. One little glitch that I noticed when I was running benchmarks, we did Rise of the Tomb Raider and we ran the in-game benchmark. When we set the settings, we set everything 1080p low settings again so we could get a good comparison. But what I found was in Tomb Raider, there was an issue where rendering in the images during the benchmark made a massive drop down to really low, like 5 frames per second at one point during the last part of the benchmark test. This caused a problem with the overall score because then it's given us a really low FPS minimum score, but you can see the maximum and the averages have sort of like equaled out. Tested the same games, so yeah, I'll pop that up now so you can have a better look. These were all tested DirectX 11, I believe, rather than DirectX 12. I tried Rise of the Tomb Raider, DirectX 11 and DirectX 12, and it didn't really make much of a difference when it came to the rendering issue, where we saw the massive drop in the frame rate. So all of the parts that we have in the system at the time of me purchasing the parts for this, not including the keyboard and mouse bundle that I got with it, these parts come to just over £400. And for £400, that's, I mean, you can't go into Curry's PC World and buy a computer for £400. Their base model with a 1050 Ti costs around about £650 to £700. So bearing in mind, a 1050 Ti now is what, four years old. This is a brand new card. It's new lineup. It's got the GDDR6 memory. It's got the new architecture. Processors new. So all of this system is from the using the newest technology you can use in a build. And at this point in time, you've got very, very easy upgradability of this computer. So like I say, we're using a 240 gig SSD. We're in the GameMax Centauri case with the blue LED fan at the rear. We've added in an extra front fan to help with cooling, so sucking in air at the front. This case has a little bit of air ventilation on the front and underneath to help suck in air. Airflow in this case in general is quite good. It's got open ventilation at the top. So this case actually has support for 3 120mm fans at the front, 2 120mm fans on the top, and one 80mm or one 120mm fan on the rear. You can put up to 6 fans in this computer. You would more than likely need to get a fan controller to be able to run 6 fans in this case. There is no reason I can't see why you couldn't mount a radiator on the top or a radiator at the front. Probably 240 and 240, just because this bracket here for the PSU shroud, I don't believe it's going to give you much room for a 360mm radiator to fit in there. This case only supports up to an M80X board. However, there's a lot of room in here with the M80X board in. It also supports ITX as well. Mid-tower chassis. You see we've got some cutouts for cable management. Cable management itself is not great. It's the flat panel on the back with the GameMax logo. There is a little bit of room for cable management down the front side and feet. It's quite elevated off the desk itself. It's got quite a lot of room underneath to help that power supply suck in nice cool air. You've got a couple of drive cages down here in the bottom behind here, and there is SSD mounting on the top. You've also got room here. It does come with a GPU support bracket, so if you've got a longer, heavier graphics card, then you can mount your support bracket here. We call this our Delta R3 starter gaming computer, and hopefully, as you've seen from the gameplay that we've used on this machine, it does run the games quite well. Upgradability is very easy. I will link everything in this build in the description below so you can obtain these parts, or if you wish to purchase a build like this from us, I'll also link the store page for that. If you have any questions or comments, please down in the comment section below. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions on this build. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, you can always give it a thumbs down. And don't forget, if you're new here, hit that subscribe button, and don't forget to turn that notification bell on to get notified when we release a video. So anyway, thanks all for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.